Thanks everyone joining us and welcome back to our Medical Leadership and Management lecture series. For anyone joining us for the first time, my name is Scott and I'm one of the FY1s working in the west of Scotland, and I'm part of the team who helped organise this series. The aim of the series, for anyone joining us, is to teach the FMLM curriculum in a series of fun, short, interactive sessions. FMLM is the abbreviation for the Faculty of Medical Leadership and Management, which is the professional home for medical leadership in the UK. We have a great talk for you this evening from Mr. Tan Hussain, who is a senior surgical trainee in East Midlands. This is unfortunately the last session in our three-part series, but developing personal qualities is just one section of the curriculum, so we hope to do future further talks. We have a very short questionnaire that I'll post in the event and email out to everyone. It takes less than 5 minutes, so we would really appreciate if you fill it in after the talk. And once you fill out the questionnaire, we'll send you an FLM certificate, just certifying that you came to the event, something which you can hang on for your portfolio. But thanks so much. I'll pass over to Mr. Hussain now. Thanks so much for joining us, and we're really looking forward to your talk.
Hello and good evening, and thank you for tuning in and taking some time out in your evening to join this undergraduate lecture series. And today's session is about continuing personal development. So my name is Tanvir Hussain, you can call me Tan. I'm a surgical registrar from the East Midlands. And what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about some themes that are important. That's very much kind of my own thoughts on what things I think you should be thinking about, and some tools and some skills and attitudes that you should also think about when considering your personal development. And then I'll focus on the FMLM undergraduate curriculum, which is supposed to be the focus of this talk. So some of the themes you've got to think about is the basics first in your curriculum, the clinical knowledge, skills and management. What knowledge and skills are going to get you through your medical school finals? And that's your bread and butter of your work. To complement that, leadership skills are vital, okay, to practice as a doctor. And what I think you should also throw into the mix is authenticity. And what I mean by that is there are going to be things that you're naturally good at, or things that you're passionate about, and things that you really care about that you want to do in your career. And sometimes it's worth thinking about those. Sometimes it's worth thinking about how you're going to bring that into the mix, because that will really make you enjoy your work. I think it's important to have a mentor or coach. I've put that actually as plural, mentors or coaches. And you may have different mentors who are good at mentoring you in different aspects of those aforementioned skills. You should always have a look at the FMLM undergraduate curriculum, and also the passport. The passport is the FMLM leadership passport developed by the training steering group. It came out last year, and I really wish I had seen something like this as an undergraduate, because first of all, at the back page, it's got the FMLM standards for leadership. But also it's got a lot of free text boxes where you can document your development and put examples of leadership activities, and track your development. And I think it's a must for every undergraduate and every trainee. So you working towards being a clinician may have big dreams, you may have outside interests, and putting all those together can help make you an authentic leader. Another thing to think about, I think, is credibility. And what do I mean by this? The reason I'm bringing this up is because one of my heroes is a surgical consultant from London called Shafi Ahmed. And we were at an event and I asked him about his success and achieving some of the things that he wanted to do, and his success with using tech and innovating, especially with education. And one of the pieces of advice he gave me is that you have to be as credible as possible in your main bread and butter work. So if you're going to be a consultant surgeon, be credible, make sure you get your CCT and get whatever things are going to give you that credibility, be it a large number of publications or whatever that is, got to be credible, okay, for that platform. And that will really help you in your other endeavors. The other things I would also say is think about what's on your CV, think about what can be Googled about you. there are nowadays websites or apps that will list different attributes. So ResearchGate will have your publications, you can add them on there, or your presentations as well. You're going to have exams and extra qualifications, you may have prizes. All of these things put together do give you credibility, so it's important to think about that. Now, when you're developing, some of these things you can do is see what your seniors are doing. So if you're in foundation program, think about what your core trainee seniors are doing in a specialty that you're interested in. Look at the curriculums itself. Don't forget your bread and butter. So think about if you're in third year of medical school, think about what's in the fourth year, think about what's in the fifth year. If you're a core trainee, think about what this higher trainees are doing. To give you a broad overview of the knowledge, the skills, attributes, all the things that you're going to need and you want to develop. And then also think about using tools that help you get feedback in your development. And these tools can be work-based assessments, they can be 360 assessments. Value your time, because some of these tools, because you may be given targets of getting a certain number a year, it may be easy to treat them as a tick box exercise. So get somebody who likes you to fill it out. Somebody maybe ask you just to fill it out yourself and they'll sign it. Value your time. If you think about how hard you've had to work so far to get to where you are, your time has a value. So don't waste your time on things that are tick box exercises. Make the most of those assessments. Get feedback from someone who's truly going to give you feedback that will help bring you, let's just say, if you're good, to excellent. Just imagine if you were stuck on good, and what would get you to excellent is feedback that you have not been seeking because you're taking the easier way out to do a tick box exercises from some of these valuable tools. Because in the short term it may look good to get sort of full marks from somebody who's just going to sign you off from these tools, but in the long term, that overall development in your skills, in your attitudes, in your skills, leadership skills, I should say, that getting true feedback is invaluable in the long term. And try and be reflective and reflect. That this is sort of, you might think this is a buzzword. This is so important for making the most of all of your interactions and all of the episodes of your work. So sometimes the 5 R's are used to explain reflective practice: reporting, responding, relating, reasoning, reconstructing. I'll walk you through an example. So let's just say a patient who is hyperkalemic got prescribed the wrong IV fluids, got prescribed fluids with potassium in. So you could state facts that this patient is prescribed potassium that shouldn't have been, and so therefore this has been stopped. And think about actually what does that mean? That means this patient could have gotten pretty sick or unwell. And the reason with that situation, why does this happen? This has happened because the ward doctor was overworked and too busy, and therefore had a lapse in their concentration, their normal protocol in prescribing fluids. And then putting it all together, how are you going to make this better? How are you going to make sure this doesn't happen again? And that might be that the doctor has then reviewed the NICE guidelines for fluid management, has put in a sort of a system for themselves on how they're going to prescribe fluids in future. And that whole exercise will make them recall this such that it doesn't happen again. And they've now developed a new protocol of how they tackle fluid prescribing when posed with this situation. So let's talk about some the leadership skills, why we're here today. So the FMLM standards are really useful to look at, as is the FMLM leadership passport, which I mentioned earlier. So do, if you get time, to go on a search engine and look for that. So I've screenshotted the FMLM leadership management standards, which is off the back page of the leadership passport, and it splits all of these standards into behaviors that are categorized into self, so self-awareness, self-development, personal resilience, being a team player, and being a collaborator. And I actually use these subcategories when I'm talking about stuff on the curriculum, actually. So the undergraduate curriculum is really, really useful. And if you're an undergraduate, I'll definitely have a look at it. I've done a short link that you can type in to have a look at that. So let's talk about the focus of today's session, which is continuing personal development. And there are 4 competencies that you can see labeled 1 to 4 at the top. And these competencies are categorized into knowledge, things, skills, attitudes, and behaviors. So let's talk about the first one. So the first competency is entitled Actively Seek Opportunities and Challenges for Personal Learning and Development. So from a knowledge point of view, it's worth having an overview of what your seniors are doing. Let's just say you're going into a career in general practice. Knowing sort of the big picture, knowing what the trainees from year 1 to 3 to 4, what kind of knowledge requirements they have, what courses they go on, what about the first year after they've qualified, what kind of other knowledge do they pick up, what kind of management courses do they go on. Having that broad overview a few years in advance really frames where you're going and dividing up your time and where to seek help and things. So an easy thing to do is just see what your seniors are doing. Always try and be a bit ahead of the game, if not doing, then at least being aware. And these are probably related to courses, qualifications, certificates. So when you are learning, make sure your learning is effective. So things like exams, there's obviously the standard stuff that most of us probably already know, study skills related to learning from questions, spaced repetition, active recall. But it's also really useful to look at curriculums. So we talked about the long-term things earlier, what's maybe required in 3-4 years' time, but actually sort of being mindful of what's in your curriculum in the immediate few months is always really important. Now, being a trainee doctor in training, there actually could be endless courses and qualifications and things you could do. And so don't be overwhelmed. Don't be overwhelmed when you've seen one senior said that they've done every management course under the sun, and then somebody else has done every clinical one for every subject matter there is. Don't get overwhelmed, okay, because you can't do everything. And actually, you could very easily skip a lot of things and do the bare minimum and completely sail through your career. So don't stress out about a lot of people doing so many different things and then thinking that you must do everything in order to be worthy or something. Try and enjoy the process. You've got your bread and butter that you've got to get through. So as an undergraduate, that's going to be your undergraduate curriculum. But in addition to that, pick up a few things that are going to be useful to you if you've already made career plans, and also things that you would enjoy. It's really important to enjoy the process. If you are going to be doing courses or skills and things, it's worth seeing if they're from learned societies and trying to think about why that would be relevant as well in the wider healthcare system. So we've talked about knowledge, let's talk about some skills. So we've already actually mentioned some skills like study skills, a reflective practice I talked about earlier, really, really important. But then some skills may be practical skills, okay? And when you do go on a course, when you do learn skills, it's useful to try and put that into practice. In fact, some operative skills courses that you go on, they actually say on there, this is going to be most useful to somebody who can go and actually do these operations afterwards straight away. The other thing I think is really important is that when you do either go on very expensive courses or put a lot of your time out to apply, retain, and to go on courses and learn content and develop yourself, is have a system to retain that knowledge. You know, you could spend a lot of time learning content and just forget about it. So if you've got a system to manage your content, especially things that you think are really useful, and then you can look back on every now and again, that is the perfect situation. Using your assessment tools, I mentioned these already before about using the work-based assessments that you will come across throughout your career as a way to develop rather than as a tick box exercise. So still being on that competency 1, actively seeking out opportunities, we'll talk about some behaviours, and I've categorised these and actually copied and pasted some of the phrases off the FMLM leadership standards from the passport. And so categorized into sort of self, personal resilience, team player, and cross-team collaborations, I'll go through them. Quite like this one: manages own emotions and adapts a leadership style to have maximum positive impact. So really being aware of how you react in certain situations would make you be mindful in high-risk situations, in possibly explosive situations, how you may react, how not to react, partly from your reflective practice, how actually to react. And there can be courses you can go on that would help regulate, improve your behaviors. Personal resilience in this section, I would say, that takes full accountability for actions is a really important behavior to be mindful of, because something does go wrong or something goes well, really you owning that, you learning from that, you developing from that, and that then being part of your behavior system is really important. And always striving for excellence to earn the respect of your team, to boost up that credibility thing. You want to be someone who has the reputation of working to a high standard, or striving to work to a high standard, because you have to be real and realistic as well. Let's just say work isn't a high standard, but you want to be. And if you've got that intention and you use the tools such as reflective practice, feedback from your peers, you've got actually a chance of achieving that excellence. In terms of team player to team leader, attracts and develops talent. So when we talk about actively seeking opportunities for personal learning and development, if you're a team player, then you may actively be seeking opportunities for your team. Okay, so let's give you an example to actually make this make sense. As an undergrad, you may be working in a student society. It might be a specialty related society. It might be a leadership society. And doing something for the team, it may be that you've spotted somebody that actually would be really good on the team. They may have a skill, they may have tech skills, social media engagement skills, and you think they'll be really good on the team. So you can recruit them, you can attract them to the team because they would like to work with you because of your own personal integrity. And then empowering these new members that you've recruited and motivating them to deliver. That's what makes you a team player, actually even a team leader. And so when we're talking about this competency of actively seeking opportunities for personal development, it's not necessarily always personal, it could be team development. Another thing that I really like is the celebrate success in the FMM standards. Because I can't tell you how important it is. I've been in situations before where a team of junior doctors are not gelling together, are not functioning nicely, slightly falling out, maybe because of the stresses of the work. And all it's needed is for me to organise a dinner where everybody's gone out in a non-stressful situation and bonded and actually functioning so much better because they can really approach each other. So I can't tell you how valuable the celebrate success is. You could be the guy who actually, or the girl who's organised a dinner, and that has made a massive difference to the team. So don't discount this kind of stuff. And going on to cross-team collaborations, networking and collaborating with others, learning stuff that you can bring to your team is really important. And another thing that I like to say is talking about unfair advantages. So you might have a friend who is in X, Y, and Z team who may be able to help you in your, be it your student society, be it in your department where you're a foundation doctor. Don't discount them, use them. Life's unfair advantages, use them and use them to help develop yourself and develop your team. Sharing your networks also, that's another buzzword that I haven't actually put here, but is actually on some of the standards. That is something also that is actually rated quite a lot. We talked a lot about standard 1 of 4. I better go through these quite quickly, otherwise you're going to be here for a while. You guys are all good people are taking your evenings out for this. So competency 2, acknowledge mistakes and treat them as learning opportunities. This is absolute gold. This is so important. This is something you'll be judged on throughout your career from undergraduate level right till you're the most senior doctor. How you respond to mistakes is really, really important. So part of this, let's talk about the knowledge thing, having insight into the problem, having the insight to spot what's something that you need to phone your boss about right away, what's something that you better sort out by the morning, and what's something that can wait till the monthly M&M meeting. There are tools to acknowledge, report, and regulate mistakes, and those tools can be Datix. There is this thing called root cause analysis. I'm not sure how in vogue it is still nowadays. You can go on a course to learn how to do a root cause analysis when there is a problem that has multifactorial. Most departments will have mortality and morbidity meetings where they talk about things that have gone wrong with patients, or not necessarily wrong, but not obviously a desired outcome to see if things can be done better. And they're also, there's a reflective process in that. And then there can also be mistakes or problems that end up with regulatory bodies, which is all a bit not really nice to chat about. Don't really want to be discouraging, but actually I think it might be worth for trainees to look at the MPTS, Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service website, and to look at some of the stuff that there are even very junior doctors ending up in front of the regulator for things that, I don't know, like they may not necessarily be things that they've actually set out to do, but things that happen that have got people in front of the regulatory bodies, and this is very real. And so it's worth looking at your GMC duties of a doctor and actually reading on paper what these behaviours that are expected of you are. Okay, so moving on. So skills in acknowledging mistakes. So yeah, having that insight, being able to communicate is huge. So you've upset a patient, you've upset a staff member. Having that skill to be able to go up to them and apologise. I can't say how important apology is. I'll give you an example. So one of our the entry to surgical training, it's like an OSCE, and there's actually a station where I remember my station to get into ST3 general surgery was a patient who had a operative complication, and the patient was in hysterics, and like I was just thinking, I'm not even going to be able to get a word in because this guy is just going to be shouting the whole time. How am I scoring marks? All I have to say is I'm really sorry this has happened, and straight away that was in their script. Straight away the patient calmed down and I was able to actually get through the question and the station, and that just exemplifies how important it is to be able to say sorry, okay, and having that humility and having sort of emotional intelligence. Some of the courses that you will go on for communication skills and dealing with problems and things like that, they will tell you that actually a patient decides whether they're going to sue you pretty much on their first meeting with you before even the operation has gone wrong. So this first impressions and communication is so important. Having your assessment tools done as well, where people can give you feedback. You might not realize that you either have conversations too short or you may have certain mannerisms and completely unintentional. And you want that honest feedback. You want to improve on stuff. You want people to tell you honestly, actually, you don't, you need to maybe speak a bit differently in this situation. And keeping evidence as well, because just to demonstrate, actually, I had that problem, but I acted on it. And my next assessment, I was way better at this. So the behaviors in this: acknowledge mistakes and treat them as learning opportunities. So the self section, seeking and acting upon feedback and colleagues, reflective practice, we've talked about it over and over again. Personal resilience, sustains personal levels of energy and remains enthusiastic, okay, and optimistic, they say, face for setbacks. So this is a really important thing as well. This is all about resilience and being able to cope with the problem, reflect, learn from it, and move forward. That is a quality that you're going to have to employ throughout your career. In terms of team player, that section, asking others for their opinions and ideas, I think that's really important. So it doesn't matter what specialty, what level of seniority, whether they're medical or nursing or physio, it doesn't matter, but actually seeking feedback and opinion from all of your team members is really important, because all of our work is multidisciplinary nowadays. Everybody's opinion is important, and you showing that you value everybody's opinion is really important. And you might have to actively do that just to demonstrate your leadership skills. In terms of the cross-team collaborations section, it's really important also to think outside the box and talk about challenges that you have outside your immediate team, maybe even outside your profession. obviously confidentiality ensured, because that's going to get you to innovate and think outside the box and try and apply different ideas to your work. So there's third competency: participate in continuing professional development activities. So we've talked about curriculum and talked about asking your seniors, the people ahead of you doing, but also try and think outside the box. One of my current boss, who I have a lot of time for, really highly regard, whatever he tells me, he tells me that he actually signed up to a site called Coursera. He pays a subscription, and they have a huge library of courses, often from reputable organizations, mainstream universities, short courses. And he actually demonstrates that as part of his CPD for his appraisals that go down really well. And I was really encouraged by this. There's also a site called Udemy. I think they also run short courses for mainstream universities. And see how you can innovate, see how you can learn from maybe another specialty or another industry either. So in terms of the skills for this, for your continual professional development, see if you're going to say put something on your CV, make sure you've got sort of a credible resource, and make sure you've got a system of putting that learning and your reflections down on paper or on an app or some kind of recording system where you will review it, because that will get you to continue to develop, and it will make sure that you won't forget all of this newfound knowledge that you have. So in terms of the behaviours for participating in continuing professional development, I think definitely drawing upon a range of leadership theories is important, okay, for your leadership development. Think about doing an NHS course. There is, I think, the Edward Jenner program, which is free, and that is really good. Think about using your appraisals and end of placement feedbacks as part of a tool to really help you develop. In terms of your personal resilience, one of the things that's really good for your continual professional development is actually having the time to do extra CPD stuff. So aside from your basic curriculum that will pass you your exams, if you want to continue professional development, you need the time to do it. So your time management, effective time management, knowing when to say no, all of those things really important here. In terms of being a team player, see how you can coach your juniors or your colleagues in what you're good at. There is quite a common phrase used nowadays, especially social media: lift as you climb. That's huge, and I can't tell you how valuable that is. So really mentoring and coaching others is part of this process. And then in terms of cross-team collaborations, so seek out opportunities beyond your immediate team. So I'll give you an example. The FMLM Training Steering Group are doing a webinar series that's going to be a year long, and I have been tasked with opening it, and that's going to be on the 22nd of June. And I have a huge interest in quality improvement, and so I've got a clinician coming on there, but I've also got the head of quality improvement and engineering at Rolls-Royce, because I really want to know what they have to say. I want them to see what we're doing for quality improvement in healthcare. But I'd really like to see if there's anything that they're doing in engineering that can help us implement that in healthcare, or if they'd like to collaborate with anything. And there isn't really any limits on what you could do. It's really where your imagination and a bit of insight let you. So the fourth and last attribute that is going to be part of our session today is change behavior in the light of feedback and reflection. And so this is somewhat similar to things we've already talked about before, how you respond to feedback. And it could be, let's just say the feedback is all about clinical stuff, okay? So your performance in a clinical scenario, you want to get better, you've been fed back, it needs to get better. You may want to actually go on a bona fide, let's just say it's related to life support. You might want to go on an ALS course or BLS course, ATLS course, and demonstrate that you've gone on a refresher course and you've got your skills up to date and you've got the certificate and you are now okay. This is communication skills one. The best communication skills course I've seen is actually one by the Medical Protection Society. That is excellent, and it's free to members. You may have to pay for it if you're not a member. And if you've been given feedback regarding your practical skills, yeah, maybe go on a course, or maybe go and spend some time in theatre or with somebody who's credible in that practical skills, and do a few, and then maybe do some assessments to just demonstrate that you are up to speed. Collect evidence. Okay, so people can perform less than optimally. People can perform where they get feedback where they need to get better. The main thing is to make the most of that, have evidence in your portfolio, and have a system where you can think about, right, I'm not going to be sad about this. I'm going to act upon this positively by sorting this problem out. So the skills you need, yes, and knowing where to look. Okay, so if this is a clinical skill or a clinical situation, having that overview of what is the course for, let's say, life support, what is the course for trauma skills management, you need to have that overview, and often that's really useful by looking at curriculums. So if you're, say, surgical trainee, having a look at the curriculum, which might be vast, where they say what course or what text is the gold standard for that skill, and then going back to that, because we're talking about behavior, change behavior, and like feedback and reflection. Let's just say you had a problem, and let's just say this problem was communication. Okay, so let's just say you are a surgical SHO or a core trainee, and the foundation year 1 doctor was upset because of interaction you had, and the ward sister has fed back to your line manager or your supervisor. So what's your supervisor going to do? One of the things it may do is look at your portfolio, especially if it's electronic, and see what your previous appraisals or 360 appraisals or your previous surveys of your colleagues said. And actually, if they were all excellent, then your line manager may step back and think, okay, this is probably one-off. This is not like so-and-so. So if you've got a track record of exemplary behaviours, or a track record of where your behaviours you've developed and given feedback, and you have done something about it, and then you've got subsequent feedback to show that's better, then that's going to look really, really commendable. So the behaviours with the change behaviour in the light of feedback and reflection, it's always seeking and acting on the feedback you get from patients, from colleagues, and always looking out for how you can develop. The personal resilience section, we've talked about the personal levels of energy. We've already talked about being enthusiastic in the face of setbacks, but this is really important, because if your resilience needs development, then we need to go and do that, and there are courses and there's a lot of support you can get for that. But that would be a target for one to do, because setbacks and feedback that need improving are actually normal to have. I think it would be not normal for you to not get any feedback where you need to develop. In terms of the team player section, coaching to develop individuals, again, that's just so important, because if you want to practice behavior change in light of feedback, you've got to think about the next step. So what is the next step? So let's just say you're a level more senior, you're coaching your juniors. You're going to be able to share that experience with them, that actually, don't worry that you've had a complaint that somebody said you were rude. I had a complaint when I was a trainee, and this is what happened, and this is what I did about it. And actually, this is why I think you should go on this course, because it's really good. And don't worry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to informally ask all the ward staff, in a month's time, how you're doing. And if all is well, I'm going to, actually paste bits of the quotes from their emails onto your end of placement report to say, yeah, there was a question of communication, but actually this is what we've sent the trainee to go and do, and this is what they've done, and actually all the staff are saying this. So you've actually supported your junior from coming out of a horrible situation that could have actually made them really sad and really depressed. And actually, you've actually developed their skills, and you've developed them being as a doctor, you know, from a lifelong perspective. And you've actually turned around somebody who's potentially a trainee in difficulty to somebody who is excellent. And actually, there are many examples out there where somebody actually had feedback they're not good at this, but the support they got and how they responded, they actually ended up excellent at it. There are a lot of people out there who are experts at something that they actually messed up on once upon a time. Going back to the behavior section, the last attribute, the cross-team collaborations, engaging the wider healthcare community in teaching, training and support own work and that of colleagues. So what do I mean by this? So let's just say you had feedback that whatever procedure you're doing were having lots of complications. Let's say cannulas, let's say chest drains or something, catheters. And actually this happened quite a lot. Let's just make this a bit more interesting. Let's say 3 in a row of your procedures went wrong. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to just pretend it didn't happen? Are you going to ignore it? It's quite, you know, it's not just a one-off, it's quite a few. So your response probably has to be fitting, okay? And so you may want to go and do an audit of actually all the catheters that were done in the last month. So you've got a statistic to say that actually, you know, as a department or just me, we're not doing well in this. What are we going to do about it? We're going to put on a training day. What am I going to do? I'm going to speak to people in other departments who might have had this problem. Then what we're going to do is probably redo the audit, see what our stats are now. We may present this audit in the grand round that our department or our hospital has once a month. And actually, we're going to ask the audience, actually, did your ward or did your department also have a problem with this? What did you do to get things better? This is what we've done, as you can see, our audit data. And the rest of the people sat in the audience may give you some more ideas of what you can do. And you might be able to actually publish the whole experience in a journal that may want to publish audit or quality improvement work and present it at conferences. So what I'm trying to say is that you may have had a problem. Don't let maybe the problem or potentially even suffering of the patient go in vain. Maximize that potential to improve your skills, improve work for the department, improve things for your patients, and also engage all the healthcare community that you can to make things better. So that will wrap up the change behaviour in the light of feedback and reflection section. So that's all I've got to talk about today from this section. I want to thank Scott for organising this, and I'm open to any questions that any of you may have. You may also DM me on Twitter, that's my handle. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening and staying tuned.
Thanks so much. That was really great. One thing that struck me for me, I've just had my ARC-P, which is the annual review of competency for FY1, and I think I'm definitely guilty of, there's a big checklist of everything you have to get through, and just asking people to sign things off, maybe if it's a silly task, or just getting reflections out the way and kind of rushing them just because you have to meet these competencies, but actually taking the time to fill out these tasks, which it can really kind of add to your personal development. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'll check the chat, see if there's any questions for anyone. Let's have a look. No questions as yet. Is the leadership passport, Tan, something that you think is applicable to undergraduates, and would you'd recommend them to get started with and start filling out?
Yeah, definitely, because you can improvise. So you may not be necessarily doing clinical leadership stuff as an undergraduate, but you may be working with other student doctors in organisations, in committees, especially societies and events, and setting up teaching for your juniors. You may be doing a lot of things where you may be able to still fill out your leadership passport as you've had skills that are on that passport that you've developed. And it's really when you're mindful of them and you're reflecting on interactions, things have gone well, if they've not done well, it's only then are you developing. So if I was an undergraduate now, I would definitely use it. And I wish I had something like that as an undergraduate, because I never really even thought about leadership domains until I was a core trainee. And that's, you know, a lot of time that I could have spent developing. So the answer to your question is, yeah, definitely, I would use that.
That's great, Tim. But yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Don't think we have any further questions at this time. But yeah, just to remind everyone, it'd be really great if they can fill out the questionnaire. It covers all the events. So if you've attended just one, or the first one, or Tam's one tonight, it'd be really great to get some feedback for the speakers and what we can improve to kind of bring the series forward. And then once you've completed that, we can send you a certificate recognised by the FMLM for your portfolio to hang on to. Oh, we've got a question. With regards to the passport, should we log the activities we do on it? That was from Pro.
Yes, so do. So it's a Word document, so you can actually just type stuff on it and save it, or obviously you can just print out and scribble on it. But yeah, log your activities and keep doing it, because you know you can log your activities for a number of years and just see how you're progressing, not only with activities but also your reflection on how you did on certain skills.
Someone else is, where would you get access to the passport?
So you can literally just Google for it, FMLM Leadership Development Passport, and you will find it. And it's on the FMLM website, but it's free to download, it's free to access.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Sounds like a really great resource. But yeah, I think that's us. Thanks everyone for joining us for the whole series. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and you're looking forward to the next one. So the FMLM curriculum's split into about 4 domains. So that was the first one, developing personal qualities, and I hope you'll join us for the second one. Start working on that now, and hopefully we get it to you guys in a couple of months. Maybe we'll have Tan back to speak again. I really enjoyed that.
More than happy to.
Tan. Yeah, it was really good, and look forward to hear how it goes with your tech and surgery kind of influence. So yeah, thanks very much. And
thank you all for tuning in.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.